Welcome to HFY HeroFi, where the ordinary become extraordinary. Here we celebrate the fearless, the champions who rise against impossible odds. From tales of bravery in distant galaxies to the darkest corners of the supernatural, HFY HeroFi brings you the ultimate stories of heroism. If you believe you've been chosen, heed the call and subscribe now. Let us HeroFi you, and come with us on our next adventure. Today's adventure is called Midnight Bayou. Michael receives reports of people that have gone missing in the Louisiana Bayou. When he begins his investigation, he comes across a sunken ship with horrors within. Will he be able to stop it from spreading before it's too late? Keep watching to find out. Michael Midnight stepped carefully onto the creaking dock, the ancient wood groaning beneath his boots as if protesting his arrival. A dense fog enveloped the Louisiana Bayou, thick as cemetery shrouds, obscuring the twisted, moss-covered cypress trees and blurring the line between water and sky. Each step echoed softly across the misty silence, matched only by the quiet splash of unseen creatures disturbing the inky surface of the water below. The night was unnaturally still. No crickets chirped, no frogs croaked their nightly chorus. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Only the occasional glint of yellow eyes reflected in his flashlight beam, quickly vanishing like dying stars. The reports had brought him here. Whispers of vanishings, boats found drifting empty, footprints abruptly ending at water's edge. Local authorities blamed alligators in the treacherous swamp. But Michael, a figure haunted by shadows yet illuminated by divine purpose, recognized signs that went deeper than mere coincidence. The pattern was too deliberate, too methodical. Something or someone was hunting here. He closed his eyes briefly, the murky air thickening memories like syrup. His mind drifted to the darkest night of his life, the pale, lifeless form of his beloved wife, Rachel, her body growing cold on their bedroom floor, struck down by an aneurysm that came without warning. Then the desperate, forbidden ritual he'd performed in their basement. Ancient tomes spread around him, candles burning with unholy light. The vile spell he cast, bargaining with entities that demanded more than he understood. And finally, the horrific realization as she returned, not whole, but monstrous empty eyes, distorted features, a mockery of the woman he'd loved. The scar on his neck burned gently, a permanent reminder of how close he'd come to losing his soul entirely. When she'd lunged for him with inhuman strength, teeth bared, it was only through Christ's mercy he found redemption and purpose after the night he died, after he'd come back and been forced to destroy what he had wrongly animated. "Michael, everything okay?" said a concerned voice from his earpiece. Jasmine Andrews, the bright-eyed graduate student he'd rescued from a possession case at Tulane University 3 years ago, now served as his trusted ally. She tracked him from their safe haven, Midnight Sanctuary, a renovated shop on the outskirts of New Orleans, where people victimized by dark powers could come to receive protection and guidance. It had once been the location of his shop of magic when he was an occultist, but that was long behind him now. "Just memories," Michael replied softly, adjusting the worn leather satchel containing his tools, blessed silver, holy water, Bible, and more. "The air here, it feels heavy, like something's watching." Michael's breath fogged in front of him. "There's something different about this case," he said. "Different how?" Jasmine pressed, concern evident in her voice. Michael surveyed the misty expanse stretching before him, the silhouettes of distant trees like skeletal fingers reaching toward a moonless sky. "Not sure yet," he said, continuing to scan the environment around him. "Something I haven't encountered before." His flashlight illuminated the outline of abandoned boats along the shoreline, a weathered fishing skiff, a once expensive pleasure boat now listing pathetically to one side. Moss and algae had already begun reclaiming them, nature erasing human traces with methodical patience. Splashes of dried rust-colored stains marked some of the vessels, too dark and patterned to be anything but blood. Michael crouched to inspect curious markings etched deeply into the wood of the nearest boat that looked a lot like claw marks. He suppressed a shudder, his pulse quickening. "What is it?" Jasmine whispered through the headset. sensing his unease even from miles away. "These aren't gator marks," Michael muttered, tracing the claw marks with a gloved finger. He pushed himself upright, wincing slightly as his knee protested. A souvenir from a confrontation with a Wendigo in the Appalachians last winter. A faint sound caught his attention, something between a splash and a slither. Too large to be a fish, too deliberate to be the current. Michael froze, extinguishing his light. The darkness pressed against his eyes like a physical thing. But years of training had sharpened his other senses. "Something's moving out there," he whispered. "Multiple somethings." Michael reached slowly into his satchel, fingers closing around the hilt of his silver dagger. "I'm going deeper," Michael decided, reigniting his light. Whatever's happening started further in. "Michael, I don't like this. Wait for backup," Jasmine urged. "I can have Father Alejandro there in—" "No time," he interrupted, already moving forward into the gloom. "Something's telling me I need to move now." He pushed forward, deeper into the murky heart of the bayou, each step taking him further from the safety of civilization and closer to the darkness that had overtaken the bayou. "I'm losing your signal," Jasmine's voice came through in fragments. "Something's interfering. Can you back?" "Stay with me if you can," Michael replied, adjusting his equipment. "But I'll continue regardless." He paused at a fork in the narrow trail, two equally uninviting paths disappearing into the gloom. Closing his eyes, Michael whispered a prayer asking for guidance. When he opened them, a faint luminescence seemed to hover over the right-hand path visible, only to eyes trained to see beyond the physical realm. Following this divine marker, Michael pushed through a particularly dense curtain of Spanish moss, the pale strands clinging to his jacket like skeletal fingers. Beyond, hidden behind a thicket of submerged roots and dense vegetation, lay the outline of something distinctly unnatural. The shadowy bulk of a crashed vessel loomed ahead, half submerged and glowing dimly beneath stagnant waters and mud. Unlike anything built by human hands, the craft's hull gleamed with an iridescent metallic sheen despite being coated in algae and mud. Its curved organic shape suggested something between a massive manta ray and an elongated egg. A jagged rip ran along one side, evidence of a violent impact. "Jasmine," Michael whispered, hoping the connection still functioned. "I've found something. It's not from here," Static answered him. But he pressed on, circling the strange craft cautiously. Closer inspection revealed what appeared to be an open hatch near the top of the structure. A soft, pulsing blue light emanating from within. Approaching cautiously, Michael observed with growing dread the strange metallic contours, twisted and damaged from the crash. The material felt wrong under his gloved touch, neither warm nor cold, seemingly responsive to pressure yet unyielding. Murmuring a protective prayer, he hauled himself up onto the exposed portion of the hull and carefully approached the opening. Peering down into the hatch, Michael saw a narrow passage descending into blue-tinged darkness. Taking a deep breath, he descended cautiously into the damp gloom below, the walls around him pulsing with faint circuit-like patterns of light until he found a chamber. Inside, horror awaited. The chamber opened into what could only be described as a laboratory, though designed by minds vastly different from human understanding. Bodies lay sprawled across raised platforms, men and women from the surrounding communities, restrained by alien mechanisms that seemed partly mechanical, partly organic. Tubes and strange apparatus pierced their lifeless forms, conducting gruesome experiments. Some bodies had been partially dissected, organs removed and suspended in translucent containers filled with glowing fluid. Others bore evidence of systematic tissue sampling, perfect circular sections of skin, and muscle extracted with clinical precision. Nearby, screens pulsed with alien glyphs, casting sickly illumination across the chamber. Though incomprehensible to human understanding, the intent behind the displays was unmistakable. They showed human anatomical systems, progressive infection patterns, and what appeared to be projections of global spread vectors, perfecting a pathogen to cleanse Earth of humanity. "Michael," Jasmine gasped, her voice suddenly cutting through the static. viewing the scene remotely through his body camera. "What is this?" "An invasion," Michael whispered grimly, realizing the scope of the threat. "Aliens?" Jasmine asked, surprised. "I think so," Michael said, examining the displays. "Looks like they're testing some kind of bioweapon. But this isn't the full invasion force. Must be a scouting party or something." He moved carefully through the chamber, documenting everything with his camera for Jasmine. The air inside felt thick, laden with microscopic particles that made his skin crawl. Near the center of the room stood a containment cylinder, pulsing with energies that distorted the very air. Around it, clearly the source of the pathogen. As Michael approached it, the lights on the walls flickered rapidly, shifting from blue to an angry red. Warning alarms sounded, a high-pitched, oscillating wail that pierced his eardrums. "I've triggered something," he muttered, backing away quickly toward the exit. Without warning, the metal above him creaked as if someone or something was walking above him. "They're coming back," Michael realized aloud, drawing his blessed silver dagger. "Jasmine, if I don't make it out—" "Don't even say it," she cut him off. "Just get out of there now." Michael ascended quickly, heart hammering against his ribs, emerging onto the hull of the ship, and into mist-laden darkness thicker than before. The fog had intensified, limiting visibility to mere feet, but he could hear movement slithering, splashing sounds converging on the vessel from all directions. From the murky waters rose alien forms, amphibious creatures with elongated limbs and skeletal webbed fingers, their glistening gray skin reflecting dim moonlight that somehow penetrated the fog. Standing over 6 feet tall when fully erect, they moved with a disturbing fluidity, bodies bending at impossible angles. Vertical slits opened to reveal rows of needle-like teeth, and above these, luminescent eyes fixed upon him with predatory intelligence. "Jesus, guide me," Michael whispered, heart pounding as he took a defensive stance. As the first creature lunged, its body coiling like a spring before extending with frightening speed, Michael raised his hand, whispering fervently in prayer. A radiant light erupted from his palm, striking the alien and casting it back into the water with a shriek. More surged forward from every direction, webbed appendages grasping for him. Michael struck with the silver dagger, the blessed metal sizzling against alien flesh, forcing them back momentarily. But for each one that retreated, 2 more emerged from the murky depths of the bayou. A razor-sharp claw raked across his back, tearing through his jacket and into flesh. Michael cried out, stumbling forward, nearly falling into the waiting arms of another creature. Rolling at the last moment, he narrowly avoided being seized, the momentum carrying him to the edge of the hull. One step in the wrong direction, and he would fall into the dark waters below. Surrounded and wounded, Michael stood resolute, reciting scripture under his breath, feeling divine energy surge within him once more. "Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil," he proclaimed, voice growing stronger with each word. "For thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me." A protective shield of heavenly brilliance surrounded him, expanding outward in a perfect sphere. Creatures recoiled from its purity, screaming in agony as the light touched their alien forms, flesh smoking where divine energy made contact. Yet more emerged from the water, countless eyes reflecting in the mist. "You prepared a table before me in the presence of my enemies." Michael continued, the words flowing through him like fire. The light intensified with each verse, his faith manifesting as tangible power. One particularly large creature, clearly a leader, its body adorned with bioluminescent markings, emitted a series of clicking sounds. The others responded immediately, changing tactics. They began circling, keeping just beyond the range of Michael's protective sphere. Then with frightening coordination, they attacked simultaneously from all sides. Michael's shield flared brilliantly as multiple attackers struck it, the energy fluctuating under the strain. Gritting his teeth, he channeled more power, drawing deeply from his connection to the divine. His scar burned fiercely, a reminder of the darkness he'd once embraced, and the redemption he'd fought so hard to earn. "I will not fail," he said through gritted teeth. The leader surged forward again, its massive form crashing against Michael's shield. with enough force to shatter it. Divine energy scattered like glass fragments, leaving Michael momentarily vulnerable. The creature's clawed hand closed around his throat, crushing pressure threatening to collapse his windpipe. Gasping for breath, Michael thrust upward with the dagger, driving the blessed silver directly into the center of the alien's eye. A terrible scream erupted from its vertical maw, the sound vibrating through Michael's very bones. Acrid, phosphorescent fluid splashed across his face as he twisted the blade deeper. The creature released him, thrashing in agony before collapsing, its body convulsing violently before growing still. The remaining aliens hesitated, communicating through rapid clicks and whistles, apparently reassessing the threat this human posed. Michael took advantage of their momentary confusion, stumbling toward the hatch. "Thou anointest my head with oil," he rasped, voice raw but unwavering. "My cup runneth over." Divine light flared once more, providing cover as he descended back into the vessel's interior. The aliens followed, their sinuous forms pouring through the opening like nightmarish liquid. But Michael had gained precious seconds. Breathing heavily, Michael retreated deeper into the ship, heart pounding fiercely against his ribs. Blood seeped from the wound on his back, warm against his cold skin. He understood his true purpose now. Ending their deadly bioweapon before the pathogen could be perfected and deployed. The fate of humanity rested on destroying that containment cylinder and whatever it held. "Jasmine," he whispered, hoping the connection still functioned. "I need to find the central chamber again and destroy whatever's inside." Michael navigated the twisting passages, the walls pulsing with angry red light that matched the rhythm of pursuing footsteps. Twice he was forced to hide as alien forms slithered past, their movements more frantic now, communicating in rapid, agitated clicks. Finally, he located the central laboratory again. The containment cylinder was now pulsing ominously with deadly promise. The glyphs on surrounding screens moved faster, countdown sequences clearly visible even to human eyes. They're accelerating their timetable, Michael realized. They're going to release it now. That must be what these glyphs mean. Approaching cautiously, he examined the cylinder. Up close, he could see the horror within a swirling, luminescent blue substance that seemed alive. Tendrils of energy reaching out as if sensing his presence, pressing against the transparent barrier that contained it. Temptation whispered insidiously at the edges of his consciousness. Dark knowledge suggesting a simpler path. Arcane rituals he once mastered. Forbidden words that could harness this power rather than destroy it. The old Michael, the occultist who defied God's natural order, would have seen opportunity here, a weapon to be wielded. He shook it off, resolute. His redemption demanded a higher calling. "Not today," Michael growled, gripping a cross that hung heavily at his chest, the silver warm against his palm. "Not ever again." Focusing deeply, Michael extended his hands toward the cylinder, praying intensely. Words of ancient Hebrew flowed from his lips, not as incantation but as supplication, calling upon divine protection in the face of abomination. A miraculous wave of holy energy surged forth from his outstretched hands, visible as rippling air that collided with the cylinder. The container shuddered, cracks appearing across its surface, as conflicting energies battled for dominance. The aliens arrived in force, pouring into the chamber from multiple entrances, chittering in alarm as they witnessed Michael's assault on their biological weapon. They converged on him but hesitated to approach too closely. The divine energy surrounding him and the cylinder creating a dangerous nexus they feared to touch. Michael intensified his prayer. The cylinder's cracks widened, the pathogen within reacting violently, tendrils of blue energy lashing out like living things. "Though the mountains be shaken and the hills be removed," Michael recited, "yet my unfailing love for you will not be shaken, nor my covenant of peace be removed." With a sound like shattering crystal, the containment cylinder fractured completely. But instead of releasing its deadly contents, the pathogen began to disintegrate, divine energy neutralizing it at the molecular level. What remained evaporated harmlessly, rendered inert. Above, Creatures wailed their fury, the sound resonating through the entire vessel. Warning alarms blared deafeningly as the vessel's systems registered catastrophic failure. Water began pouring through cracks in the hull of the ship. "My holy shield damaged the hull," Michael said. "Get out of there before you drown," Jasmine shouted through his earpiece. Water rushed violently into the breached ship, quickly filling the lower chambers. Emergency lights flashed chaotically, casting strobing illumination across panicked alien forms as they abandoned their attack on Michael, instead scrambling toward escape pods embedded in the walls. Michael struggled upward through flooding corridors, the ship shuddering violently beneath his feet. His limbs burned with exhaustion, vision blurred from blood loss and the strain of channeling divine power. Yet he felt God's presence guiding him forward. A section of ceiling collapsed behind him, narrowly missing his heels as he stumbled onward. Water swirled around his waist now, rising with terrifying speed. "Help me, Lord," he gasped, pushing through a partially closed doorway, metal edges scraping against his shoulders. "Not for my sake, but for those who still need protection." Ahead, the original entry hatch seemed impossibly distant, water already reaching its lower edge. Michael fought against the current, each stroke growing weaker as hypothermia set in. The alien vessel's interior now rapidly cooling as systems failed. His foot caught on submerged debris, pulling him under momentarily. He surfaced, sputtering and gasping, but found himself disoriented, unsure which direction led to escape. Miraculously, a faint luminescence appeared through the murky water, not the threatening red or blue of alien technology, but a gentle gold, outlining a path through the chaos. Trusting implicitly, Michael followed, his faith rewarded as the light guided him through a previously unnoticed maintenance shaft, barely wide enough for his shoulders. With the last reserves of his strength, Michael pulled himself upward through the flooded passage, lungs burning for oxygen. His vision tunneled to a pinpoint of light. Above was freedom, if he could reach it, just a little further, he wheezed, stretching toward the opening. His hand broke the surface, followed by his head as he gulped precious air. With one final effort, Michael hauled himself through, emerging moments later, gasping and triumphant into open air. The ship sank rapidly behind him, dragging alien terrors into watery oblivion. Massive air bubbles erupted across the bayou's surface as compartments collapsed, followed by an unearthly wailing that seemed to come from the water itself. Michael dragged himself onto a small hill, collapsing onto his back, staring up at stars now visible through thinning fog. His body trembled with exhaustion and cold, but his spirit soared with the certainty of divine purpose fulfilled. "Thank you, Jesus," he whispered to the heavens, "for carrying me through once again." In his ear, Jasmine's voice suddenly returned clearly. "Michael, Michael, are you there? Please respond." "Still here," he managed weakly, mission accomplished. Her relieved sigh was audible over the connection. "Stay where you are. We're 20 minutes out." Michael closed his eyes, allowing himself a moment of rest. "Tell them to hurry," he murmured. "And bring warm clothes." Dawn broke gently over the bayou, painting water and sky in hues of soft gold. The mist had lifted, revealing a landscape transformed, peaceful now, as if the horrors of the night had been nothing but a fever dream. Jasmine arrived with Father Alejandro. Her worried face softened into relief as she knelt beside him, dark eyes scanning his injuries. Father Alejandro began treating his wounds. "You look terrible," she said with gentle honesty, passing him a thermos of hot coffee. Michael accepted it gratefully, the warmth seeping into his cold, numbed fingers. "You should see the other guys." Father Alejandro smacked Michael gently on the back of the head. "This is what happens to you for always trying to investigate things alone," he said. He shook his head and murmured his annoyances in Spanish as he continued treating Michael's wounds. "We need to be vigilant," Michael said, taking a sip of his coffee. "This was just a small force. Those that escaped will bring others." They sat in companionable silence for a moment, watching the sunrise cast long shadows across the water. "You did it," she whispered finally. "Not alone," Michael replied quietly, staring thoughtfully across placid waters. that now hid alien secrets in their depths. This battle wasn't mine, it belonged to someone greater. I was just the instrument. He touched the cross at his chest, then the scar on his neck. Jasmine hesitated before speaking again. I heard you call out to Rachel when you were under. In the worst of it, pain flickered across Michael's features, quickly replaced by a serene acceptance. I did? Old habits, I guess, he said softly, but I've made my peace with that loss. Rachel's soul is at rest now, truly at rest. Not what I tried to force with dark rituals. She would be proud of you. Jasmine twisted one of her braids between her fingers. Michael looked at her. This brilliant young woman who had once been his rescue mission, and now was his closest ally. One day I'll see her again, Jasmine, the real her in heaven's light. Until then, I'll keep doing God's work. Back to work, I guess, he said quietly as he stood. Together they walked away from the rising sun. Though threats would come again, they would face them, with the same unwavering resolve. Behind them, the bayou reclaimed its peace. Shadows retreating before the dawn's light. Over ancient cypress trees standing sentinel, secrets now buried in murky depths. Water lapped gently against the shore, washing away footprints, almost as if cleansing the bayou of the night's battle between horror and divine intervention. Yet somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, something took notice of the failed experiment, adjusted its calculations, and continued its patient journey toward Earth. For now, however, the battle was won, and Michael Midnight, once lost to darkness but now an instrument of light, would be ready when the next one began.